There's something so primitive, primal, brutal about a tomahawk as a tool. For the most part, if you want a really well-balanced American-made hawk, you're gonna have to spend an arm and a leg, or compromise and get something made in China. That's fun to play around with, but isn't an actual tool. Well, that is not the case with the Model 1 from American Tomahawk. Well, that's right, folks. Welcome back to another video here at Gideonstactical. I'm Aaron. We're out here in the woods. We're gonna have a blast today. Honestly, like, we're gonna blast through some material. But also just have some enjoyment, a blast in the sense of fun, as we take a look at this Tomahawk. Now, what makes this so special to me in particular is the fact that, again, it's American made, you know, and the Tomahawk originated here in the Americas by the Native Americans as a brutal, not only weapon of war, but also a very valuable tool. And outdoorsmen, woodsmen, soldiers, Native American tribes have seen that value now for centuries upon centuries. So it's only fitting that we look at a tomahawk that's made here in America. So the cool thing is that American Tomahawk, which is an American company, whoa, time out. I want to get this straight off the website, just to kind of let you know what's backing this American Tomahawk company. Now, American Tomahawk carries on the legacy of Peter Lagana, World War II Marine Corps veteran, and is currently owned and operated by Ryan Johnson, Richard Carmack of RMJ USA, Jeff Kirkham of Readyman, and John Hickman, speed thinker extraordinaire. So that's the backing and the history behind American Tomahawk company that you and I, the user, get to rely on. So it's just awesome having that RMJ USA stamped right there on the head. And there are two different versions that are available. We're gonna be looking at the polymer handled nylon, reinforced nylon handled version. There is a wood handled version as well if you want more of a vintage feel and performance. Now, the polymer version has this very large bolt holding that head onto the handle. What better way to test the durability of a Tomahawk than to throw it? Because I know, and you know, if you own a Tomahawk, you're gonna throw it from time to time. The data point for you, they do say that if you are gonna be throwing this Tomahawk, to go with the nylon handled version. The forces of throwing will drastically increase the wear on the hickory handle. Okay, so we've proved that my technique is not super good because I'll connect with the wood, but obviously not in the point that it'll bite in. But nice, tough, durable, nothing's loosening up. And if you're a better hawk thrower than I am, you might be able to get it to stick. So guys, I'm really looking forward to getting to know this tool with you today, seeing how it performs as a possible breaching tool, self-defense tool, but also outdoors woods tool. So let's go ahead, see what this RMJ owned, USA made American Tomahawk company Model 1 can do for you and me. So as we jump into talking about performance, capability, let's run in some basic specs for you so you know what you're looking at. The overall length is 14.125 inches overall length. From the edge in the front to the spike in the back is 8 inches overall head length. And the cutting edge on the blade up here on the face is going to be 2 3/8 of an inch. It's going to come in at 20 ounces without the sheath, and the blade material is drop forged 1060 with a Rockwell of 56 to 57. I'm going to stop right there for a second. That is a much higher than what you'll often see with a lot of drop forged 1060, 1055. You know, there's a lot of tools out there that kind of use that type of steel, but they're going to be very low, usually in the low 50s. This is 56 to 57 Rockwell hardness. That's going to mean that's going to keep its edge longer than some of those softer tools that you've seen where the tool rolls its edge a lot. It means that, you know, it's tough and durable, and this is tough and durable for what we're about to see, but it will hold its edge longer, and I am seeing that when it comes to actually holding its edge, it will hold its edge better than some other tools that are out there that usually don't have as high a Rockwell. And with that, I want to talk about when I opened the box. How was the edge geometry? How was the sharpness of this tool? It was perfect. I cannot tell you how many times over the years I open a box with a tomahawk or a hatchet and it's blunt as a butter knife. It's terrible. You can't really do any work with it. So you're either gonna have to spend quite a bit of time hand reprofiling and getting the edge you want on it, or busting out, you know, the belt powered sharpener and reprofiling the edge. So it was fantastic to open the box and go, all right, let's get to work. So it comes with a V grind when you get it. Obviously over time you can, you know, put a convex on it if you want or something like that, but it has that V grind, which means it's going to be very precise. And I got to tell you, all of the use you're seeing in this video was with the factory edge. I did not have to tune it up. I did not have to reprofile it. Everything you see, and even after throwing it at the tree multiple times, all the chopping and splitting and, you know, taking out all kinds of different stuff, this edge was holding up great. And it was literally on the last day of filming and testing this out when I was doing some splitting. I did some ricochet hits where it didn't quite connect with the wood, dug deep into the ground, I hit a rock, and I got a roll on the edge, which is to be expected. I mean, a $300, a $400 Tomahawk's gonna do the exact same thing. And so I just wanted to see how well it resharpened. Man, it tuned up so easily with my field kit, my Work Sharp field kit. In like 5 minutes or less, I had factory sharpness back on the blade, and it was very, very easy to work with. So that higher Rockwell, gonna hold its edge longer, hold up to harder abuse for a longer period of time than some of those softer Rockwell tools, which is awesome. But then when you do actually have to put an edge back on it, it's gonna be very easy to do out in the field. All right, guys, let's go ahead and hit this spike here first and kind of talk about the breaching capability. It's about a 3-inch spike, so you're gonna get a lot of distance between you, and you're not gonna accidentally be like hitting your hand up against a wall or something like that, or a door if you're trying to breach in that way. You have several different grinding angles to kind of be able to pierce well. It took me about 3 strikes to get through that cinder block before it chunked out, which I thought was very reasonable. And the very nice thing was it didn't start to deaden or dull that tip. The tip isn't sharp, but it's very, you know, pointed and piercing, and that again leads to that higher Rockwell, so it's going to hold up better again in breaching and going through cinder blocks and, you know, brick and that type of stuff. If you had to, it's not just going to dull out and be this snub-nosed hammer before you know it. It's going to still keep that spiked shape. And it obviously went through that pallet very easily, so it tears right through that stuff. So destruction with this and going through maybe like a wood door or something like that in a home to get either in or out of a room would definitely be something that this would be very capable of, as well as in a self-defense role. Obviously using it as a spike would definitely be a formidable tool in that way as well. So if you did have to use this as a breaching tool, I think that it has a lot of capability, good balance, and you can expect the spike to hold up very well under very hard, abrasive, breaching style abuse. So one super important aspect of any tool is the carry system. You know, you can have a great tool, but if it's a really junky carry system, you might not be using it or carrying it, or then you got to send it off for custom kydex or leather. Well, that's not the case with this Tomahawk. This Tomahawk has a kydex sheath, totally dig it. We got some really good polymer loops that could either be fed through most PALS webbing or obviously run on any type of belt, very large there. Even got RMJ cut in there. Again, that kydex all the way around. You can also attach these in different points. So there's lots of lashing options basically that you can do. We got a really nice polymer strap to keep it real nice and secure. I mean, that thing is not coming out of there. So super nice and secure. Then you just pull that strap down. You got to give it a really good tug. But there you go. Able to pull that sucker out and you're ready to rock and roll. And then putting it back into place isn't that difficult either. Slide it back in, super authoritative click. And you're good to go. So love the kydex and attachment points, and they even have other options you can get aftermarket from the American Tomahawk website as well for different type of lashing points if you want. All right, now let's look at this as a self-defense tool or possibly a combat tool, because I know definitely law enforcement, military do tend to carry tomahawks from time to time. This is based off of, I believe, a Vietnam era tomahawk, and I know Vietnam veterans would often take that into Vietnam, and really since then have used tomahawks. And obviously in centuries prior, Native Americans and outdoorsmen, woodsmen, trappers, tomahawks were extremely vital tools in that capability as well, not just as an outdoor tool, but also as a self-defense combat tool. And so with this design, because of the edge geometry, because of the head and the balance, I believe it's designed very well to use it. It's extremely nimble. Now, I have no prior experience. I'm not trained using tomahawks in self-defense. Obviously, if you were going to do that and think you were going to do that in a situation, then obviously get training, know what you're doing in that regard. But what I like about the idea of a tomahawk, and particularly this one because it's just so well balanced, the balance is so good, is that you get not only a lot of reach, but it's a large motor skill tool, which means you don't have to have as much training. And in a pinch, if you had to, it has a capability that maybe a knife or something like that, if you were in a hand-to-hand combat situation, had to defend yourself that way, you have a higher probability of connecting with the target from further distance away, which is important, and you don't have to have as much skill as you may with an edge tool like a knife. So that is a benefit. And for those of you maybe who are even a citizen, you know, particularly in today's day where there's just so much unrest, and for whatever reason, maybe a firearm is out of reach either financially or because of other reasons or the place you live, this may be a great option for you to consider as a last-ditch self-defense item, tool in that regard. And let's be honest, there's just an intimidation factor that comes into play. Someone busts out a tomahawk and you were thinking of doing some harm to them. That person, I would believe, would think twice before approaching that person if they know that they are armed with a tool like this. All right, guys, let's take a brief time out and talk price point on this hawk. Now, I did reach out to American Tomahawk Company, said, hey, honestly, since this originally dropped, it's been on my radar. Would you be willing to send out one so that we can test, review, so I can see its performance, so you guys can see its performance, so you can make a wise decision if it's something to put in your rotation. And so they're willing to send this over to me to test and review for us today. So this is usually going to run you, regardless if it's the polymer handle or if it's the wood handle version, they're going to run about $190. So just short of $200 is what you're going to be paying for this hawk, which I believe is this really good, like, kind of middle ground. You know, you can easily spend about $100 easy on overseas produced hawks that are just not going to have the quality to fit and finish, the name of RMJ Tactical behind it, you know, with its design. Obviously, we're seeing that super rock solid. We're getting an epic sheath. Almost every other tomahawk I've ever used comes with either a cruddy nylon or some very cheap polymer, you know, that sure, it gets the job done, but you know it's not going to last you a lifetime. This is so tough, durable, that you know it's going to last you a lifetime. And I believe the same with this hawk, that everything I've been putting it through so far. So if you feel like you're tired of the cheapo overseas produced hawks, but like $400 for a full-on, you know, RMJ Tactical or some of those other brands that are out there seems a little out of reach, this could be a possibly really good kind of bridging point to give you really good quality, American-made, but not break the bank compared to what else is out there from U.S. companies. And now finally, as an outdoors tool, because let's be honest, probably for the majority of the people watching this video, you're contemplating, yeah, sure, breaching, self-defense, maybe, but realistically, I'm going to be using this around my campsite, or I'm a day hiker, backpacker, camper, you know, and I just want a tool like this. It's just fun. It's different. It has crossover capability. Is this going to perform as well as a hatchet or close to, you know, just your average camp hatchet you can pick up at any hardware store? So this is what I found. One, again, the weight really helps out a lot because it's going to be a lot lighter than most of your other hatchets that come in around 14 inches overall. So that's a big benefit, is that it's going to be significantly lighter. Just as one example here, this is the larger model of the S-Wing Sportsman's hatchet, but this guy comes in at 29 ounces. So 9 ounces heavier than this Tomahawk. And when you are having to pack in the tool, that's something that you absolutely have to consider. So because of the edge geometry and just the balance, it's very comfortable to make shavings and fine cutting with this tool if you did want to do that. For whatever reason, in a pinch, you could easily get curls for a fire going, which is great. That's always a nice little benefit to have. And then more precision chops, very good as well. A lot of those other camp style hatchets, they're good, but to get a really good precise chop can sometimes be a little bit difficult if you're making spear points and doing other activities like that. This, because again of that very consistent handle design all the way through, just that stick, design, broom handle design. But also the edge geometry again and balance makes it very easy to remove very precise cuts and chops, which is great. And then your light chopping, if you're going through basically anything about an inch to an inch and a half in diameter, one swing usually will get that taken care of. We'll just chop, boom, it's good to go. But it's when you start getting into the larger, heavier chopping that obviously it's not a hatchet. It is a tomahawk, and that's where you're going to have to weigh how much chopping are you really doing. I did fall a tree, and it did decently well. I didn't feel like I was there for 20 minutes trying to chop down this tree. I'm annotating in right now the overall time it took me to fall that. And I didn't feel like I was super, super out of breath and like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to do that again. Now, I wouldn't want to do that multiple times, and a large hatchet would definitely accelerate the chopping time. But again, if I'm looking at this as either the lightweight capability of it outweighs needing to put more strikes on the wood when it's, let's say, 3 inches or larger, that's something that you can just weigh there. But obviously when you start getting into those bigger diameter logs, if that's something you do often, a hatchet will perform better in the outdoors than this tomahawk. It's just the designing of a tomahawk versus a hatchet. And then finally with splitting, we were actually really impressed with dried out wood like pine. This thing did really well. If you need to split some logs, that are, let's say, 3 inches in diameter or less, it could actually do it with 1 to 2 strikes very, very easily. Now the head, almost right away, it's a very aggressive, if you will, thickness right around here near the head point before it hits into the bell kind of flare around the handle. You're looking at right around 0.4 inches thick, so it does that pretty quick, and that is a pretty decent thickness, going to be competitive with those S-wings that I just showed you. And then you're looking at 1.1 inches right here where the logo is for the head. And what tends to happen, but it tends to bind up right there, particularly on harder, denser wood, and then you'll have to start pounding through and stuff. So if you're doing some splitting on either what is very dry wood, it'll be very easy in that regard if it's a reasonable thickness of, let's say, 3 inches in diameter or less. Now, obviously, it's not a hatchet, so it won't split quite as well as your camp hatchet. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it splits just as well as a large camp hatchet with a good, splitting head on it. That's just not the way it's designed. But it's designed as this kind of multi-purpose tool that absolutely, depending on what type of work you're doing in the woods, can be a very capable woods tool and woodscraft tool as well. And that spike can also be used in the outdoors, not only to dig up, and make a latrine and those type of things, if you need to do something like that, dig up other things, roots, whatever it may be, kind of clear out some stuff for a fire pit, whatever you might be doing, and or really getting underneath some wood and really splitting up some wood. But obviously the drawback being that you're not going to be able to hammer things very well. You can kind of do a side hammer and connect right there where the RMJ logo is on the other side. It's smooth, and so you could hammer in a tent peg or two, but it's not something like a full-on hammer where you could do that over and over and over again. So with this nylon handled version, we have very high traction, which is good, but it was never abrasive. Even when I didn't wear gloves, I never was like, oh, this is causing pain and tearing up my hand, I don't like this. It was totally comfortable, kept the grip really well in my hand. The lanyard hole with the lanyard really helps accentuate that, so I could get lots and lots of strikes before having to reset, especially when I was like falling that tree. I didn't feel at all like it was wanting to fly out of my hand when I had that lanyard on there, and even without the lanyard, it's very doable, and you don't have to reset very often without having this high abrasion. And it was shock resistant as well. It wasn't vibrating my hand with all those hard strikes repeatedly on the wood and other material that I was doing. And then obviously there's that wood handled version that even has a lanyard hole as well, and a little bit of a flare if you are looking for more of that vintage feel. Well, folks, there you have it. Thanks for coming over today, watching this video. I hope it's been fun, entertaining, and answered some of the questions that you may have about this design. And we always appreciate it when you leave comments below, when you like, when you share this video, and invite you to subscribe, become part of the GT family here. You can check the other video popping up as well. And I think that any person that sees the need for a USA-made, super high-quality Tomahawk that's not going to break the bank on the US side of pricing, I think you will not be disappointed with this Model 1 from American Tomahawk. So guys, appreciate you so much, and always remember, stay equipped, stay prepared, and we'll see you out there.